Hi, welcome to my classroom. So today I'm going to be doing a lesson video in my classroom. My students all know what this looks like, so welcome. We're going to be talking today about how to turn different units into other units, okay? So the first thing we want to talk about is a conversion factor. Now, a conversion factor is a way to change, it's a ratio that we need that it's always equal to 1, and we use a conversion factor when changing one unit into another unit. Okay, so let's get started here. An example of a conversion factor here is 1 foot over 12 inches. So notice that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches, so having 1 foot over 12 inches means that you have one unit over itself, so this is equivalent to 1. So it's a ratio with two different units that's equal to 1. Likewise with 100 centimeters over 1 meter and 1 day in 24 hours. So it's a ratio of two different quantities, and you're going to use it to convert, but the ratio, the top and the bottom of the ratio are always equal to each other. They're just in different units. Okay? So the first problem that we're going to encounter is converting 1.5 pints to liters. Okay, and I've used a Google search from pints to liters to come up with this equivalency. So 1 US pint is equal to 0.473176 liters. So I'm going to create a proportion. So I know that 1 pint is equal to 0.473176. Okay, and we're going to set that equal to another proportion. Notice it doesn't really matter if I put pints on the top or liters on the bottom, as long as I mirror the units in the ratio on the right. So meaning if I put pints on the bottom, then I have to make sure to put pints on the bottom of the second ratio here. So since I put pints on the top, I'm going to put, let's see, I want to convert 4.5 pints to X liters. Okay, now I'm going to leave the units to the side for a minute, knowing that when I get X, it's going to be liters here. So let's see, 1 times X is X. Okay, and this amount of liters times 4.5 ends up being roughly, not roughly, if I round it to the nearest thousands, it's going to be 1.89, and again, that's going to be in liters. Okay, let's go back and make sure this makes sense. So 1 liter is less than a half, 1 pint is less than a half of a liter. So if I have 4.5 pints, we're going to assume that in liters it's going to be less than 2.25, which is half of 4.5. So that ends up being what we get here. So that's, roughly 1.89 is less than 2.25, and that's because there's less than a half of a liter in 1 pint. So that looks good to me. Okay, so always go back and make sure that you've done this correctly or at least run it through a series of logical arguments that, okay, this is less than this, so this must be less than this, and so on, just like I just did. So it helps you check your answer. Okay, I wanted to make sure you understood something here for a minute. Now, I searched pints to liters, but I could have easily searched liters to pints. So just like there's in 1 pint, there's less than a half of a liter, it makes sense that in 1 liter, there's more than 2 pints, okay? I could have used either one of these conversions in order to convert 4.5 pints into liters. If I used this one, I would have just had to put 1 liter on bottom here, 2.11338 pints here. And again, I would end up I'd have 4.5 pints is to X liters. And what I'm going to end up doing here is dividing, right? Because I'd have this, let's see, I'd have the product of this and X, right? And then I would have the other cross product, which is 1 times 4.5. So I'd end up dividing 4.5 times 2.1138, and I would get the same thing, okay? Notice that 4.5 divided by 2.11 is going to get you 1.89. So it doesn't matter which conversion I had. I'd still be able to do the problem. Okay, now this is a problem where we're going to have to use multiple conversions. Let me change my pen here. Now, a boat is traveling 45 kilometers per hour. What is the speed in miles per minute? Okay, so we're changing two units here. We have to change kilometers to miles and hours to minutes. All right, and there's many different ways that you can do this. In fact, there's a way that you're going to learn in high school chemistry class where you make a series of you use the conversion units and multiply a bunch of factors together in order to get something in miles per minute. I'm going to show something that's a little bit more intuitive. So your parents may have seen it a different way, but I'm going to show it to you in a way that you just need for Algebra 1. So if you have 45, let's just write this down, 45 kilometers per hour. This is a rate, right? It's a rate because we have two different units. We have a unit of length in the numerator, and we have a unit of time in the denominator. So it's traveling at a certain rate. Now we just have to convert this rate to a different rate. We're looking for miles per minute. So the first thing I want to do is I want to convert kilometers to miles, okay? Because what I would like to figure out is if it's this many kilometers per hour, how many miles per hour am I going? Okay, that's what I'm wondering. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to do a little side problem here. So I want to convert 45 kilometers to X amount of miles. So 45 kilometers is to X miles as, let's see, I would want to do 1 kilometer is to 0.621371 miles. Okay, so I'm going to multiply these two numbers together, right? This is my cross product, these two. And that's going to get me X, right? That's going to get me X. So when I do that, I end up getting X is equal to 27.96 miles. Let's see if that makes sense. So 1 kilometer is equal to less than 1 mile. So it makes sense that 45 kilometers we're expecting it to be less than 45 when we transfer it, when we translate it to miles. So what I'm going to be able to do now is go back up and fill this in here. So 45 kilometers per hour is going to be 27.96 miles per hour. Now, instead of putting this per 1 hour, I'm going to write this as 60 minutes in the bottom here, because 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes, right? So we have 27.96 miles in 60 minutes. So notice these are all, I'm using the equal sign here because they're all equal. 45 miles per hour is, because 45 kilometers rather is 27.96 miles, that's equal. Because 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes, those things are equal. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to create a proportion that if it's 27.96 miles in 60 minutes, how many miles are you going in one minute? So we're going to go 27.96 miles in 60 minutes is equal to X amount of miles in 1 minute, because that's what I'm looking for, right? Oops. So I'm just going to, it's a little off here, but that's minute, okay? So when you do this, you'd get 60x is equal to, because you're using cross products, is equal to 27.96. So x must be equal to 0.466 miles. Okay? Per minute. All right, so what we were looking for is if we were given 45 kilometers in 1 hour, okay, it's going to be 27.96 miles in 1 hour. And so if you're going 26.17 miles in 1 hour, it's about, let's say it's about 30 miles in 1 hour. If you have 30 over 60, it's about 0.5. So it makes sense that our answer would be 0.466 miles in 1 minute. Okay, so that's the answer there. All right, so the way that I did this is I just sort of picked apart each thing. I had to use two conversions. I had to convert kilometers to miles and hours to minutes. So I just sort of kept bringing it along in a more intuitive way. Okay, the area of a field is 125 square feet. What is this in square meters? Now, this is a type of conversion that uses squares. So this is an area conversion. It's not a length conversion. So a square foot is a block that's 1 foot by 1 foot. So literally, if I thought about a square foot, like what it would look like in the world, it is just a square that measures 1 foot by 1 foot. Okay, that's 1 foot squared, like that. So what we're trying to do is, if we had 125 of these tiles, how many square meters would we have? So in order to do that, what we need to do is go back, and we have to look at one foot squared for a minute. And we need to convert 1 square foot into how many squared meters. So 1 squared foot, let's go back to the dimensions of a square foot, which is 1 foot by 1 foot. So I'm rewriting it as a product of 1 foot times 1 foot. Now, I know that in each foot it is 0.3048 meters. So I'm going to convert each of these into meters. So you have 0.3048 meters times 0.3048 meters. Okay, and when I multiply that together, I'm going to get 0.0929, and meters times, so I would multiply meters times meters, which gets me meters squared. Okay, so let's look at what we just arrived at. We can see that 1 square foot right here is equivalent to 0.0929 meters squared. Okay, I went from a length conversion, 1 foot is to this many lengths in meters, to an area conversion. 1 square foot is that many square meters. Okay, now what I can do is I can use that in my proportion. So if I'm looking for 125 feet squared, and I'm looking to turn that into x meters squared, then I can use the conversion 1 foot squared is to 0.0929 meters squared. Okay, and when I use cross products here, I'm going to end up multiplying, of course, these two together, 125 times this, and that's going to be equal to 1 times x. So x ends up being equal to 11.61 meters squared. Okay, again, x was equal to 125 times, it's a multiplication symbol, 0.0929. Okay, and so it gets this right here, and I rounded it to the nearest thousandth. All right, and that is the end of our lesson for today. So you learned how to convert single measurements. You learned how to convert 2 measurements in one problem, and you also learned how to convert measurements that are like square measurements. Okay, if you had a cubic measurement, let's say that you wanted to convert 1 foot cubed into meters cubed, that's a volume measurement. Okay, you're wondering how many meters cubed are there in 1 foot cubed. You have to go back to the dimensions of 1 foot cubed, which is 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. It's a cube with feet as its measurements along the sides, and then you'd have to convert each of these into meters, right? It was about 0.3 meters, and you have to be multiplying them together, right? This is multiplication here. And then when that's all finished, you're going to have the amount of meters cubed, whatever that is, in 1 foot cubed. So that's one way of doing that. You're going to be asked to do a lot of these type of conversions, but always go back to the dimensions, convert the unit dimensions, or the length dimensions, and then you'll have the volume dimensions, or the surface area dimensions. And that's it. Thanks for watching.